All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I appreciate everybody listening in. You guys, it's actually big surge in the listeners right now on the show. I think it's just because of the time of year it is. All you waterfowl folks are kind of trickling back in to see what's going on, what's new. You've been gone maybe for a few months, or it's just new listeners. If you're a new listener to the MVM show, we appreciate you guys listening in and really enjoy trying to put the content out there that you guys want. Today, I have with me a guy I've been watching their videos for a while now, and I don't even know how to do this introduction right because my thing is I love having guests on. It's like my favorite thing to do, but I have such a crazy schedule, and I have Connor with me today from Uneven Terrain Outdoors. And Connor, I think you could attest to how kind of random this was. Hey, man, can you do a podcast? So there's a lot of people that I know I would like to have on that say, hey, they would come on, but it's such a random thing when I'm available with the way my job is and stuff. It's kind of last minute thing. So Connor, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Titus. I really appreciate it. Kind of met you through Instagram, and I think I followed Paulie and some of the other guys that you hunt with, and kind of started following your content from there. You started commenting on my posts, and I reached out to you with a couple of our videos. I actually asked you to do a review on one of our videos when you were doing them, a couple of years ago. And
okay, I remember. I don't know who that was, but now that you say that, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, no. And so that's kind of how this relationship started. But then we started talking, earlier this week about doing a podcast together, and super happy to be joining you this afternoon.
Yeah, well, tell everybody, because sometimes we wait till the end to do this and maybe not everybody's still listening. Tell everybody all your socials and your YouTube channel, all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's uneven_terrain_outdoors. And YouTube's just Uneven Terrain Outdoors. And I do about probably 90% of our waterfowl content on the page. It's really just a group of guys who are really good friends. And, Zach Ackerson, he's the one who created the page, but, we kind of just created the page just to have fun filming and posting content with, a great group of people, and, just with kind of the goal of getting people outside. And it's kind of, morphed into this as I've, kind of got more passionate about waterfowling. And now I would say, it's, a good majority of our content's, waterfowl content. And, that's really what I'm passionate about and what I'm here today to talk about.
Amen to that. Well, I appreciate that. And I guys really need to check out their YouTube channel and their Instagram page. And I'm assuming you guys are on Facebook too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a Facebook.
Okay. I know it's not, no one's as really active as much on Facebook as they are, but as far as anybody, right? Like a lot more is towards TikTok and Instagram. But anyways, check them out. Really, the videos that they have on the waterfowl, if that's most of everybody that's listening to this probably is more so into the waterfowl side, really check them out. I really love your guys' videos and how you do things and how you work hard. And I don't think we mentioned this yet, but they're New Mexico boys. And if you don't know about New Mexico and Colorado, we're going to get into that in this episode. And I'm super stoked to listen to everything and your wisdom and your learning and your experience, Connor, and like how you guys do things. Some things probably the same, some things different, but check their videos out. Really, they've had some killer videos. I feel like you guys, are you filming with a camcorder, a GoPro, or like what are you doing when you're doing your waterfowl stuff, or an iPhone? Because to be honest with you, I've bounced with so many things, and sorry to ask you a question and cut you off, but I'm gonna say something here. I've struggled. I think it's like maybe the 5th year or so that I've been doing it, and it started with the GoPro and a cell phone, and that's all it really needs to be technically the way things are. I know my friends do the same thing and very successful, but there's different feels with each thing. There's a GoPro, you get your feel for that. You can't really see the birds as good always, but depending on if you're by yourself, that's really all you got. Then me and Tom's have done just our phones because that's all we had. We've used a camcorder and we've used fancy cameras. And to be honest with you, um, I liked phones really good too if you have someone there with you. But what are you guys doing? And are you just using whatever you got, or do you kind of have a specific tactic?
Yeah, all of our YouTube videos pretty much are filmed with a camcorder.
Mm.
And, a lot of the content that I post on Instagram is all with my phone. And Zach just bought a really nice camera. And so all the filming that he does now will be done on that camera. So, we're hoping to have a lot better content in the future. But, it's hard because, being out waterfowling and, having your phone being in the mud, hunting in the mud, it's hard to get, good quality content that you're willing to share and, not give away spots and areas and different things too. So it's kind of finding that balance. I would say like a lot of our content, we don't even post on the page. So I'm sure you deal with that too. Just
Right.
like, finding a good balance between, providing good content, not giving away spots and also, just, giving good content to your audience.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's usually at that point, and I've sometimes regret this, but sometimes if it's a place like that, there's places I know a lot of people will recognize, but it's public refuges, so it really doesn't matter because people are hunting. If they recognize it's because they've hunted it, and it's just a public refuge, so you got to have a resi or something to get in there, anyways. But yeah, I just want video. If I feel like that, I just we won't even take the cameras or something because we just want to like take a break and like enjoy it for ourselves. We definitely do that multiple times throughout a season. But anyways,
for sure.
so
everything on our YouTube is filmed with Zach Ackerson. He's the the guy that does all the filming. So
yeah, no, you guys do a great job.
Yeah, he's the one that's filming it, and he really has like that last video that we did on that spring. It came out really good, and we've got some good content, but we also need to do a better job of posting more frequently and getting more waterfowl content out on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, going from a guy that's trying to do it consistently, sometimes it'll burn you out, and I've got really, really burnt out. So, I mean, if you guys are happy how you're doing it, I highly suggest staying with it, just do it how you guys have been doing it, unless it's something you're really trying to grow big, but which is always, you always want to be better and grow, right? I mean, that's kind of just a life goal in general with anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. I've thought about that a lot and, what we want to do with the page, more to me, it's about sticking with the original goal and just getting people outside. If I can convince one guy to fall in love with waterfowling the way that I have, to me, that's all worth it. And so, if they like the content, great. And if they, get passionate about the sport, that's even better. So
exactly. So let's go backwards a little bit and work our way into you getting into waterfowling and stuff. So where were you born and raised in?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Lived there pretty much my whole life until this last year. We recently moved out to Tennessee after my wife and I got married. She's a doctor. She's at Vanderbilt, attending residency here. She's an internal medicine resident, and I work out of a company that's still in New Mexico, Sandia National Laboratory. It's a Department of Energy laboratory located in Albuquerque, and I love it. We're going to return back there here, in a few years once she gets done. And New Mexico's really home to us, and it's definitely a great state to be in if you're a waterfowler.
Now, you saying that probably throws most people off. Like, wait a minute, New Mexico, great state to waterfowl in. We talked before, like talking about places that people don't expect, and it's like, well, it's a hidden gem. You don't want to put it out in the public, but at the same time, they've got to make the efforts to go places anyways, and not everyone's going to do that. But like, what is it about New Mexico waterfowling that you love?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's It's in the West. A lot of the Western states, are really good waterfowling states. New Mexico's got the Rio Grande River, which is the fourth longest river in the country, flows right through the middle, directly south of Saskatchewan, south of Colorado, which surprisingly produces a ton of birds. And Colorado is kind of not really known for its nesting efforts, but some of the areas in Colorado have been known to produce more birds per mile than anywhere in the United States on the right year. So, it's a great place to be. There's a really low number of hunters. There's refuges throughout the state. All those refuges pretty much are dedicated for waterfowl, and I think there's over 10 of them. You've got like Bosque del Apache, Sevietta, Bernardo, Casa Colorado, Belen, Huey, Bitter Lake, Las Vegas, Maxwell, Rio Mora, Valle de Oro. All those refuges are dedicated to providing, winter waterfowl food, and a bunch of them you can't even hunt on. So they're safe places for waterfowl to go end up at, as they end their migration. Usually New Mexico is typically right on the freeze line. And so, it can really hold a lot of wintering birds. You've got, a good season. Typically in New Mexico, it opens, mid-October, goes through late January. And, there's always somewhere to hunt around. We start hunting in Colorado in October 1st. And then, usually to end out the season, we do a lot of our hunting in New Mexico. But it's definitely a great place to be if you're passionate about waterfowl, and, you can spend some time scouting around here.
What kind of feed are the ducks? Because I'm thinking New Mexico is a lot of sage, a lot of dry ground. But what kind of feed do you notice, like wild feed, that the birds are using in New Mexico?
Yeah, so literally every river system has a ton of agriculture around it. Nappy, which is the Navajo reservation. If you just search Navajo duck hunting on YouTube, you'll see just an unbelievable amount of birds up there.
Really?
Got a ton of corn up there. Yeah, on the Navajo reservation. They have to provide that water to, produce that agriculture because it's on the Native American land up there. So they can kind of produce a ton of corn. They get it unlimited water up there. It holds a bunch of birds. Middle Rio Grande Valley holds a ton of birds. Bosque del Apache is one of the best places to see wintering waterfowl in the winter. Then you've got Roswell, which produces a ton of corn too. That area is all, really good waterfowl country down there. A lot of winter wheat down there. A lot of the refuges do milo and a bunch of other agriculture types. They really kind of space it out between moist soil and then agriculture. And then also, people don't think about this too, we're really close to Amarillo. Amarillo has become a waterfowler's paradise over there. Cadillac Creek outfitters operate out of Amarillo now. And there's a ton of birds that end up over there, and it's really easy for them to get blown over to our river systems over here. The river that runs through Amarillo is the Canadian, and that originates in New Mexico. So a lot of those birds can, come our way. But yeah, it's got a ton of agriculture, a ton of feed for wintering birds, and it's a great place for them to end up for sure.
How are you guys doing with public land? What's the ratio there? Not that's kind of thrown you kind of a curveball. You don't have to be exact, but do you feel like there's a lot of public land to duck hunt?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we do probably, 70-80% of our duck hunting on public land. And it's a good portion. Colorado, it's about 40-60, 40 public, 60 private. We kind of mix it up out there. But in New Mexico, there's a ton of public land. You've just got to, you've got to be willing to drive away from the cities, drive out in the middle of nowhere, and find birds in different places. And so, yeah, it's a great place to be a waterfowler and to hunt public land and have the opportunity to hunt those birds, kind of all winter.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna look real quick because you guys just posted something, or probably you, like you said, you're doing all the waterfowl content, but you posted, I think it's on here, or maybe that was just a story, but it was like you walking over a hill or like something, and just all these you can see just thousands of, I think it was mallards, but I don't know, or maybe not thousands, probably
Yeah.
hundreds. Was that? Did you guys post that on something, or was that a video? I thought I seen that on your
Yeah,
Instagram.
I did. Yeah, that was a post, and that's from a public refuge. That place that those birds were, it's a public land spot to hunt.
And probably
I
not a
saw you.
soul out there, huh?
No, and that place, they rotate days on it, but
Mm,
there's not a lot of guys out here. I've seen some guys from Arizona come out here and hunt, be successful, have a good time. We've got some buddies from Texas that like coming out here. I mean, guys that come over here from different states are pretty blown away. But it's also a tough spot to hunt too. I would say, if you just come out here trying to kill ducks,
hmm
you're probably going to have a hard time unless you've got some local knowledge for sure.
yeah,
It's not just a state you drive into and just bang them up. Like I don't know, like Nebraska, Kansas,
yeah.
places
No,
like
right.
that.
No, I hear you, man. I mean, um, that would be overwhelming to look at an Onyx map. I mean, obviously, first thing I would do is look for water and look for food. But I mean, that's what you do anywhere. But seeing that video or clip, I don't know where that was. I'm not really not seeing it right now, but I was like, man, that's so vast and that could be so random. I mean, I'm not gonna ask the details about that video, but like in my mind, I'm looking at thinking, dude, you might have hiked in for 2 miles before you found that little spot where there was some standing water. I mean, how glorious was that to find something like that? I mean, that's to me, that's like kind of like what every waterfowler dreams of, is to find something where you had to put a lot of effort in to get away from everybody, and then you find something that like that, and that don't happen all the time, but it's just, boy, when it happens, it sure is neat.
Yeah, and that video was taken, right after a big cold front,
Mm,
and a lot of birds had just pushed down here,
yeah.
and I really didn't hike in too far on that one, but the majority of the hunts we do, are hike in hunts, or getting away from someplace where a guy can get to
Mm,
really easily with a boat, et cetera. We've kind of got a motto: if you can get there with a boat or pretty easily, there's probably not going to be mallards there. And so,
yeah.
we try to hunt places that we can get away a little bit, and hunt spots that are a little bit quieter than others, have less pressured birds.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, is that your predominant bird in New Mexico? Is it mallards?
I would say so, definitely. Early in the season, there's a ton of widgeon, there's a ton of teal here, ton of gadwalls. We've got a lot of like stock pond type lakes around New Mexico, and they seem to attract widgeon, teal, gadwall. There's a
Mm,
lot of those birds here. A lot of our highland reservoirs have a lot of teal, widgeon, gadwall. There's some pintails too. And the mallards pretty much stay close to agriculture and
mm,
that kind of country. So
yeah. Well, what what makes, and this is kind of some stuff we had talked about before the podcast, but like what makes hunting in your part of the country good? Like, I mean, what do you kind of feel defines you being New Mexico? Like, this is what's different. This is what I like. You know.
yeah, it's big expanses. It's just south of the Rocky Mountains, so a lot of those birds, if they fly over the Rockies, they fly over Colorado, they're going to have a hard time, finding places to get down. They're probably going to end up down here. It's so cold up there through, Wyoming and Colorado through a lot of the winter. Usually by December and January, all those birds are down here. But, that freeze line can kind of vary depending on the year. But really, New Mexico sets up right on the freeze line, and if you live in a state that's pretty close to the freeze line, you're probably gonna, be able to kill a lot of birds because it puts a lot of pressure on them. They've got to get in there, got to get to that feed, that moist soil vegetation, before, the ice gets on it. So they've got just a shortened window, a closed window of them getting on, being able to get to it. So, you know, we typically have some really good afternoon hunts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we always kind of talk about that, you know, scout in the morning, hunt them in the afternoon. You know, if we can kind of find a pattern where, you know, they're using something in the morning, usually if we can get there in the afternoon, you know, we're going to shoot them pretty good. But yeah, you know, we like to kind of watch them in the morning, see what's going on, and set up a plan for the afternoon, kind of understand the scout. You know, are they going from the roost to the feed? Are they going from a roost to the loaf and then to the feed? And just kind of going from there, setting up a pattern that makes sense for that day.
Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously different times of year with different weather is going to cause more or less feeding. Before it gets too cold, how much are you seeing? Are you basically seeing them where they're at and then they go leave and come back once for the day, or does that depend on just obviously the weather? Like, I'm sure they're feeding a couple times. So it's probably easier when it's like that to get a pattern because they're leaving a few times.
For sure. And I'm sure you see this in California too. If you get a, you know, real long warm stretch, they're going to feed all night. You know, it's going to be hard to get on them during the day. And so, you know, if that happens, you know, hopefully they're going to leave in the morning right away, go out and sit on a roost. If you can find that pattern, you know, you can still kill them in a warm weather situation because they're probably going to get back to that feed around 4-ish, you know, kind of close to dark. And, you know, it sets up a pretty good evening hunt. But, you know, if you've got that, you know, that cold weather, the second that ice comes off, they know they're going to try to get in there, you know. So just kind of, you know, understanding what the weather's doing. And, you know, kind of, did these birds just come in here? Have they been around for a while? You know, are they, you know, kind of wise to what's going on? You know, all that stuff's going to kind of make a difference in, you know, what we do for the day.
How long, well, how old were you when you got into duck hunting? What sparked that interest?
Yeah. So I was probably, you know, in high school at some point. My best friend Cody invited me to go with him on a duck hunt with his dad, and I was like, you know, sure, let's go do this. And went down, shot a few birds, you know, had a great time. And then I'd go down with Cody and his dad, you know, go hunting, and you know, we'd have a great time. And you know, I realized I was kind of passionate about this. And then Cody left to college, went to Oklahoma for school, and his dad and I, you know, we became like hunting partners. I'd pretty much be gone like every weekend. My parents couldn't understand why, you know, all of a sudden out of the blue, I was gone, you know, from November to January duck hunting. But, you know, just fell in love with the sport. Like I'm sure you did. And like, I'm sure a lot of people did. But yeah, it's just, you know, someone, you know, willing to, you know, take the time to take me out and, you know, teach me a few things.
And they're the ones that started that fire in you, huh? Just one day just invited you out and said, hey, you want to go? Or is that something you kind of had an interest in and had a good opportunity for someone to take you?
For sure. And I mean, anyone going out, you know, for a first time, you know, I took my wife out a couple years ago for her first time, and you take anyone out for that first time and it's just kind of mind blowing. Like, you know, if you're in a good area, you know, you see all these birds and, you know, you're trying to work these birds and, you know, get set up right. And, you know, when everything, you know, comes together right, and you have an opportunity to shoot a few birds, it's just kind of a magical experience. So, yeah, I fell in love with it. Like I'm sure, you know, a lot of people did. I don't think anyone just decided to, you know, I'm going to hike into that marsh today with a shotgun and see what I can do. You know, I think a lot of guys who got into duck hunting really were, you know, invited or learned something from someone, you know. And so that's kind of how I got into it too.
Yeah, I always talk about how Travis invited me, and when I was 16, I went when I was 9 with my dad and his friend, but you know, I was younger then, wasn't shooting at the moment, and I was remember being pretty miserable because my dad didn't really put me in the right gear. But no sitcom back then. I always joke I was wearing a purple puffy jacket, and don't ask me why he had me wear that out there. But Travis, one of my best friends, he invited me when I was 16, and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And he's like, "I'll be at your house at 2." And I'm like, "What?" 2 in the morning, and he ended up bringing me a bunch of greasy Jack in the Box tacos because it's like the only thing available. I always bring that story up, and I guess that was it from then on. Yeah, so that's been 22 years ago now. So you're right though. A lot of it does have to do with an invite or someone telling you how fun it is. You got to try it out sometime. And sometimes I haven't even hunted with I've told people about it for years, but they didn't even go with me on their first hunt. They end up going with someone else, and it's just they're as hardcore as anybody, the next guy. So
No, for sure. I mean, it takes somebody, I think, in a lot of situations. And, Brian taking me out and then introducing me to Mark, who's another guy that I hunt with, and he kind of brought up Brian and I's game to a different level. But Mark was an outfitter for a little bit, and Brian and Mark met through a guided fishing trip in the Gunnison Gorge, a couple-day trip. And, they were talking about duck hunting, and Brian invited Mark to, come down to New Mexico and hunt with him for an entire December and January. And he did that for a bunch of years in a row. So I started hunting with Brian and Mark. And then Mark, being from Colorado, had a bunch of great places to hunt up there. So I pretty much spend all my October, November in Colorado, really until those birds leave Colorado up there. And then, hunt down in New Mexico, probably a lot of December and January to kind of finish out the season. But Mark's the one who really brought Brian and I's game up to a different level. He's a really, really special guy, hunted all of his life and has hunted in some of the best duck country, I would say, anywhere in the U.S. It's like unbelievable some of the places that he hunts up there. I'm lucky to hunt in New Mexico, which I thought, is great. But, going to hunt up with Mark in Colorado, it's like, man, this is like a, totally different level of hunting.
Yeah. So you said Brian. Is Brian the dad of your friend?
Yeah, he's my best friend's dad.
Okay.
And one of my good friends. He was in my wedding too.
Wow. That's really cool. So
Yeah.
So how old are you, Connor?
I am 26. I turned 27 in January.
And how old was Brian, or is Brian? How much older is he than you?
He just turned 50 last year. I think he's 51. But he's like a 22-year-old. He's got such a young guy's energy.
Yeah.
And, he's a blast to be around. And, I'm sure, it's about the guys that you have around you. That kind of makes it. And Brian's, what made it for me.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Travis is crazy. I say it all the time. He's absolutely nuts. And I'll say that if he was sitting right here, I think he is 50. He's either 49 or about 50. I don't want to say 50 and he's not because he'll kill me. But anyways, yeah, there's some things he's not all wound up about, but I will tell you, waterfowl, it brings out a whole nother beast for sure. And so, and Thomas is 29. So, there's a big gap between Thomas and Travis too. But like you said, it doesn't matter to me if they're 7 years old. To have someone that has went through the hunts and been through the good and the bad hunts and it's taught you, and then I feel like I have continued to grow, and everything he's taught me, I've put it to work and learned on top of that. So, having a mentor is not necessary, because I know a lot of people listen to this, they don't have that. So I don't want to say like that's the only way, but boy, you got to count your blessings when you do have them, because that for sure helps you a lot, and you're blessed to have that.
Duck hunting's definitely something. You can get a lot better really quick. The learning curve's really quick when you've got a guy that knows what he's doing, is taking you to places that, consistently produce. And
you cut the time in half or more by having a mentor.
Oh, for sure.
The learning process.
It can be instantaneous, right? If you know what you're doing, and all it takes is, guy showing you a couple places. I mean, that's the learning curve right there.
It really
You
is.
know?
It's so fun doing that too, because I've with some of the young guys, I hunt with my friends' kids, and they go out with me and their dads at work. It's like I'll be talking, saying something about calling or don't call so much, and like watch the birds' reactions and this and that. You know, I'm telling them, and they're looking at you and they're listening and intently. But what I love the most is after you've been saying something over and over, and then it happens out in the marsh or out in the pond, wherever you're at. They look at you with that look like, I get it now. You know, like
Yeah,
this makes complete sense now. All that stuff you were telling me, that is such a rewarding feeling to see their eyes light up like that.
definitely. And I mean, duck hunting's a lot of little things. If you can learn all those little things and someone can show you those right off the bat, you start getting a lot of things right. And, all of a sudden it just starts happening for you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is. I mean, the second you see, it happened one time right after someone told you, this is what it's going to happen. It's like, a mental click, so.
What this might be kind of throwing it to you too quick there, where you might want to think about it. But what do you think's a few good or some of the best things that your Brian or your mentor taught you that has really meant a lot to you and it's just helped you so much in your waterfowling experience?
Yeah, I would say, the first thing that I learned with Mark was, to have a passion for the birds in the sport and not be worried about killing ducks. The first bunch of times I went out, it was kind of all about killing ducks and, shooting the limit. Mm-hmm. And I think the second I learned that it's about the experience, it's about the birds, it's about the sport, and it's not about, killing ducks. That's, when my game really elevated. And, you're willing to spend more time scouting. You find just as much pleasure in finding a bunch of birds as you do shooting 5 mallards. You know what I mean? That was probably the big change, because, you'll see a lot of guys go to the same spot in the refuge over and over, year after year, and they're just there just to kill ducks. They know they can go there and kill ducks, and it's not really about, having a passion for the birds and the sport and finding ducks and kind of understanding what they're doing, why they're doing it, understanding the why and having a passion for the sport is, where I, really started getting good at, duck hunting for sure. So yeah, that was the first thing I learned from Mark. I'm trying to think about what I learned from Brian off the bat. I know, like I hunted with, some different guys this year, and, I know from hunting with Brian, like that's a guy I always want to hunt with. Like, I'm sure you have those guys too. You hunted with a bunch of different guys. You've got a group of guys that, you just enjoy hunting with and are, have a great time hunting with. And that's what the sport's all about, right? Just going out and having a good time with some guys you really love to be around. And definitely learned that from Brian. I learned too, right off the bat, just working harder than everyone else, like just, being willing to, go the extra mile to go somewhere else, hike in somewhere else, whatever it is. I learned that all from Brian, and, just the work ethic that it takes to get it done.
Yeah, that's huge. And like you said, going back to the who you're hunting with and stuff, I mean, like you said, I've hunted with a lot of different people and I've had fun, but there's just those people that it's just not the same unless you're with them. And and everyone has their own quirks and weird things. And we gave each other like, oh, he's always got to mess with the decoys or he's this or that. But you would still go back 1,000 times over to hunt with that person and build that memory with that individual. So.
For sure. And like guys that I, kind of don't really spend a lot of time hunting with, they don't really understand, like, why aren't you inviting me every time you go duck hunting?
Yes.
Why aren't you, taking me with you? Well, first of all, it takes a lot of gear and whatnot to do, but second of all, I've just, found a love with being with the guys I, enjoy hunting with. I know, what they bring to the table every day, and we're going to have a good time when we go out. And that's, all that matters to me. So, most of the time I'm hunting, solo with Brian or with Mark, with Cody. Cody just moved back to Albuquerque, so I love hunting with him. It's my best friend. And, just hunting with the guys who you really enjoy being around is just so important to me. Like that's, what makes it fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's change gears a little bit, and no pun intended, but let's talk about some gear. What's, just out of curiosity, like anything, it could be whatever, but like what kind of gear do you like as far as decoys and just every little thing? I'm just out of curiosity, what, like calls, whatever. Let's just talk about gear for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I made a really good relationship with a guy in Albuquerque who, I really love. He came to my wedding. His name's Brad Parks. It's Park and Calls. He's from Jonesboro, Arkansas. And man, the guy makes an unbelievable call, and it's just such a good guy to be around. Kind of same thing. You find what you like, you find a brand that, you want to stand behind and kind of stick with it. Brad's that guy for my calls. Slayer sent us a bunch of calls this year. Man, those calls are really good. They're making elk calls now too. Those elk calls are unbelievable. I saw, they either won the elk calling competition or they came in second place. And man, those guys are just doing a great job making calls, and they're great people up there. So really like them too. When it comes to decoys, the AVNX flocked full bodies are, unbelievable. They fit into a sled really well. Just that full setups. We can fit 24 decoys in a sled, and man, it's, those are great decoys. We like those. Comes to floaters, I like the Dakota inflatable.
The packable.
Ones.
Yeah, the packable.
Yeah, the packables, they're so light. I can run a really light weight on them, and, they don't take up a lot of space. You can double stack them in a bag, and man, they're great decoys. I like them. The one thing I've seen with Dakotas is, the flocking can kind of come off, a lot quicker than the AVNXs. But yeah, I'd say that for decoys. I shoot a Beretta. I really like Berettas. Brian used to have a Benelli, and it was okay. Kind of liked it, but he started shooting a Beretta too. He likes it. He loves that gun. Seems like that gun shoots really well, especially if you're in mud. You have a dirty gun all the time. It's really easy to clean, and it's really reliable. Shoot a Pattern Master choke.
Do you shoot the Code Black Duck?
I do.
You do?
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I shoot.
What's your thoughts on that thing, real quick?
I really like it. That's what I put on my 12 gauge, and it's great. I also, when I go to Colorado, I shoot an IC, and it's not a Code Black, but that's a great choke for shooting birds in fields. And then on my 28 gauge, I shoot the IC as well from Pattern Master. They make a great choke tube, and shoot Cant 3s out of the 12 gauge. I shoot the Boss 5s out of the 28 gauge, and
you are a fellow 28 gauger, huh?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I shot it about half the time last year, and it's a really fun little gun if you've got the right hunt. Man, it's unbelievable. But if you've got a tough hunt, it's not the gun for that.
I like how you said that though. I like how you said for the right hunt.
For the right hunt,
exactly.
For sure. If you can get them tight, 28 gauge would kill them just as dead as a 12. But man, if you've got a tough day, no wind, and it's hard to get those birds in tight, you really need to take out the 12 gauge. But it's also, it was a learning curve this year. you lose that 200 feet per second.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
Yeah.
And a much smaller shot pattern. It's tough. But for the right day, it's an unbelievable gun. It really
What
is.
what 20 gauge do you have?
It's a 28 gauge. It's the Beretta A300.
I did not know they made a 28 gauge.
Yeah, it's an awesome gun.
Huh. I might have been better off going that route. I'm a big Browning fan. I love my Browning A5, and I'm just going nuts, and I'm getting tired of waiting on Browning to come out with a 20 and a 28 gauge for hunting, But did I lose you?
No, I'm there.
Sorry. But I was like, man, I can't wait any longer. So I bought my mind's gonna go blank. The Benelli, not the one that just came out this year. Why is my mind going? The Cordoba, Ethos Cordoba, just the black one.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a lot of money though. But I people think I'm crazy, but like as soon as if Browning ever actually comes out with one, which I hope they do, I would actually sell that. Now I'm not a guy that sells guns, but like I don't have nothing against Benelli at all. I mean, because I got a Franke too, and Benelli makes them, but I would just prefer Browning if I could. But like I said, I don't. I've always razzed Trouse because that's what he shoots. He shoots the what is that? Benelli. They don't even make them anymore. I can't even think of it right now off the top of my head. But anyways, I think I do remember seeing something about the A300. I bet you that's a lot more affordable.
It's the 400. Actually.
Oh, it's A400.
Yeah.
Okay, I guarantee that's a lot more affordable than the Benelli is.
It is. I got it. It was brand new, and I got it from Gunbroker. I got a pretty decent deal on it at the time. I mean, it's hard to find those 28 gauges now that the gun clubs are using them, but I got a pretty good deal on it, and it's a fun gun. I mean, if you dove hunt too, it's a great gun to have and super fun to shoot. If you get the right duck hunt, it's a great gun to have for that. I just
shot it on a pigeon hunt just to get some time behind it and see, and I was like, man, this is a blast. This is like, I shot a ton and I didn't feel one thing, when you haven't shot a 12 gauge for several months in the off season, you go in and shoot, 50 shells or 75 shells, 3 boxes. You're like, ooh, you could kind of feel that a little bit, but man, I didn't feel nothing on that 28 gauge. So like I said, like you said, only specific situations am I going to use that 28 in. It's not going to be, with me every time, but I definitely have some things in mind when I know I want to use it. So
for sure. Yeah. And those Boss, 5s are great. I shot geese with them real tight. I shot ducks with them real tight. I mean, that's a killer load, but yeah, you've really got to get those birds close. If you get them at a distance, you're going to have a hard time, not winding birds.
Mm-hmm. Do you just use the factory choke in your 28?
No, I'm sorry. I shoot at Kicks. I believe it's a Kicks. They make a steel choke and extended, and it's the only one I could find.
I actually called Pattern Master and I go, do you guys have any plans on making a 28 gauge choke, not right now, but if we hear enough about it, we might make one. I'm like, oh, please make a code black, please. I actually told him that. I go, dude, I will pay 3 times the money, and he just kind of laughed. He's like, not yet. I'm like, I wonder how hard that would be for them to just decide to do that,
No, seriously. I mean, I looked everywhere. I couldn't find one. Finally found the Kicks. It's a Kicks Smoke. And man, it's a really good choke too. I was patterning pretty good out of that gun.
Does it really?
Yeah, you just don't have as many pellets. When you shoot Boss, you get more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you just don't have the feet per second on the 28 gauge. You really got to get birds tight to kill them.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Let's go back to some more questions here. Let's talk about scouting for a little bit. What are your kind of tactics, methods? I mean, just, is it a lot of windshield time? Is it a lot of binocular time, spotting scope? Is it a lot of hiking? Like, how's it look for you?
Yeah, and it's different on different areas. New Mexico is kind of cool because, on a lot of our areas, we can get up on little plateaus and different things. And we, kind of scout just like we do for mule deer or elk, get up with a tripod and binoculars and just watch birds, see where they go. But, also some areas we don't really have those, little hills, mountains, plateaus or whatever. And, we'll get in the truck and follow them from the roost to the feed or whatever, and kind of see where they're going. And then in Colorado we do that too. It's a lot of truck time for sure. But yeah, just getting up on high areas and using high powered binoculars has really been a key for us for sure.
Now, kind of switching gears again a little bit back to gear. Let's talk about like setting up with the wind, the decoys, etc. All that. Like, what do you guys like to do? Do you like running big spreads, small spreads? Are you matching what I say? I know it's a fishing term, but matching the hatch. Like, you kind of setting up how you see the birds. You've been looking at them. Now they moved out to go feed or get some water. Do you try to set up as close to what they look like, or do you have kind of a certain method?
Yeah, I mean, you can try to match the hatch, but if you've got 1,000 birds, 2,000 birds, you can't match that. And to try is going to be really tough. But usually if we've got an area with 1,000 or two, we'll try to find a spot where we see a lot of birds going into, not really the X, but kind of off it. And if I've got a guy or two, that's plenty enough birds to shoot a 2-man limit or whatever and not really disturb them too much right on the spot they want to get to. But, we'll go in there if they're, migrating birds. Typically we'll throw as big as we can get because that's what they want to see. Those migrating birds, especially if they're coming from somewhere where they've been shot at a lot, they want to see a big wad of ducks before they're going to get down. And then, if these birds have been pressured a lot of times we can size down a little bit. Like I posted about today, 2 dozen, just kind of potted up, you watch them for a little bit, see kind of what they look like. Their pods on there you're going to hunt, and then kind of set up just like they look. And, usually we can size down and do really well without a mojo if the birds are stale and, it's been warm. And kill a lot of birds. So, it just kind of depends on the situation. When it comes to setting up, we hunt out of layout blinds pretty much exclusively. I don't really hunt out of A-frames or anything like that. But, setting up, I'm a right-handed shooter, decoys to my left-handed side. I want to shoot them on that left-handed side. It's hard for a righty to shoot laying out to his right. So you want to make sure you get that blind position right, your layout, and then, have those decoys kind of to your right, birds working in, to that right side and right into your shooting swing. And, brush up as good as you can. And kind of, if you can kind of match the hatch and, bring in enough decoys, you're probably going to shoot them pretty good.
So you probably, do you have more full bodies stand-up decoys than you do like floaters?
I do.
You do, yeah, because of the situation, the environment you're hunting.
For sure. Yeah, hunting them on refuges, a lot of moist soil. You get a lot of mud areas and, setting them up on the mud. If you watch the birds like that, they just stand there, kind of sit on the sides. Sometimes they'll run a few floaters, but, floaters are heavy. If you're, packing in or, driving a boat and having to walk in a little bit, it's, they're heavy to take in. So we like to take a lot of full bodies. And, we use the dive bombs a lot this year. The dive bombs are really good earlier in the season. Whenever we had a cold front, man, to make a, big spread, show those migrating birds, a big pile of ducks. They really worked well. Those dive bomb geese, I don't care if it's late season, early season, I think the geese are unbelievable. mallards are smart. If they circle around, don't really see that profile, have a lot of time to look, you don't have a windy day or whatever. They get a lot of time to look down and they're not seeing that duck profile. They're probably going to flare on those dive bombs, but those dive bombs at the right time this year were, kind of a game changer. You take in a lot of decoys pretty lightly. And, there were times when they worked really well.
Oh man, I had another question for you. I know what I wanted to ask on the hunt. I can't name the hunt. I could pull up, but I won't take the time to do it. But you guys I think you were in those sleds laying down, and you were in these, like, I don't know if I'm going to sound stupid when I say this, but like, I don't know if they were like cypress trees or what kind of trees they were. They were the shorter, stubbier trees. You guys were shooting them in pretty tight in there with a little bit of standing water. Do you know what kind of trees are those?
Yeah, I'm thinking they're probably Russian olive.
Oh, Russian olive, maybe, huh?
Yeah, and
Okay.
the wood ducks really, they really like that Russian olive. Some ducks do too, but I'm pretty sure they're Russian olives. If you're talking about the video, I think you're talking about.
That was the cool. Oh, I think you were killing mallards, but man, it was the coolest. It was just kind of cool to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's different. Because it was just like sagey, but then there was a little bit of water, and they were just coming in tight. I don't know. It was like, man, that looks like such a fun little spot to hunt. Just that environment, just the setting. You know what I mean?
I know what video you're talking about, and we had a really big cold front, and we did really well that day. But yeah, some areas in New Mexico real open. Some areas in New Mexico you got timber. Some areas in New Mexico you've kind of got that Russian olives kind of sparse. It really just depends on the area, what part of New Mexico you're hunting, really.
I mean, they can just be anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like Delta, Colorado holds a lot of birds that go to Nappy, North Park, Central Park, South Park. All those birds end up going down the middle Rio Grande Valley. Then you got the South Platte birds, the Arkansas birds in Colorado. Those birds all end up on the, Roswell side. There's birds on every side of New Mexico. It's just, spending the time out there to go get after them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, man, we're getting close to an hour. I really appreciate you coming on here, Connor, and sharing your experiences and your wisdom and like stuff you've seen and just your whole setting in the New Mexico and Colorado area. I know you're in Tennessee now, but saying you're ready in about 3 years to get back home. And so, guys, go check them out. Uneven Terrain Outdoors, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And I'm sure, are you guys on any other social platforms, or is that pretty much something?
No, I think that's it. I mean, for me, it's you probably mostly see me on Instagram. Most of those Instagram posts go to Facebook. If we film something with Zach, it'll go to our YouTube. But I'm in Tennessee now. I plan on coming back, to Mexico and Colorado for 3 different weeks. During duck season, I'll be hunting out here too. So I'm excited to let Elliot know, how Tennessee duck hunting is and how the South is, because I hear it's not very good, according to some of the guys on his podcast. So.
Oh yeah, you're stirring the hornet's nest right there, man.
Oh yeah,
I need to have him come on here and just do that for a straight hour and just talk about the Southern Hunt boys. Actually, there's a guy. I don't know if he'll listen to this one, but there is a guy from Georgia. And just some random guy that messaged me, and I was like, I want to have him on just because the fact that he's in a place where you really don't hear much about duck hunting from, and I hear it's pretty tough out there. But anyways, it's just nice seeing different varieties. But yeah, we gotta give the Southern boys. He's funny because he's really serious. Like Elliot, he gets all kind of worked up. It's funny to me. But Elliot's a great guy, and I don't think most people take that too serious, but. Well, man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Titus. I really appreciate it.
You definitely have to come on again. All right, everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next one.